Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. Now, if you've seen a few of my videos, you've undoubtedly formed an impression. It can be anything from guy's got a funny accent, not quite sure where he's from, old guy with a bad haircut, that ums and ahs too much, doesn't bother to edit his videos. Guilty. Actually, I don't know how to, but anyways. But one of the things that you wouldn't say is, oh yeah, he's ranting all the time. He goes off on a tear. Because that's just not me. I like to think that while I definitely have preferences, I'm candid in my observations. I'm mostly pretty even-handed. I try to be objective. Of course, I recognize that like every human being, I've got biases. But I don't usually go off on a complete wild man tear, right? Tonight might be a little bit different because I've been seeing something recently in various interviews that's, to be honest, really annoyed me. And that's that Frank Warren has been speaking to any number of YouTube people who've got really big channels, from famous people. And he's been saying that Tyson Fury is one of the two top heavyweights of the 21st century. And not one of these channels has challenged him about this, quite frankly, I think, preposterous statement. And I wonder why. I have my own feelings why, and they're not very charitable towards those channels. But I'm tired of this. It's gaslighting fans. It's telling people something that's patently not true. It's misleading people. I'm assuming that the other person who Frank thinks is one of the top two heavyweights of this century is Alexander Usyk, somebody who I would say is deserving of that recognition. But Tyson Fury, no way. Come on, look at his resume. He's had 34 wins, 2 losses against Usyk, in each case comprehensively beaten, and 1 draw. But more importantly, let's look at some other numbers. He's retired 5 times. He's fought 4 people who at one time or another held a belt. The most famous, and the one he deserves the most credit for, in my view, is his beating of Vladimir Klitschko in 2015. A very good win in Vladimir's backyard in Dusseldorf, Germany. He beat Steve Cunningham, who was an old man, like Vladimir was when he fought Vladimir. And Steve Cunningham had, at one time, had held a version of the cruiserweight title. He fought Deontay Wilder twice. He fought him 3 times in total, but one of them's a draw. So he fought Wilder twice, Cunningham once, Vlad once. That's 4 champions that he beat, or ex-champions that he beat. He's had problems with substance abuse, and in my view, his resume just doesn't stack up. Some of his other fights, he's had 1 mandatory, I believe that was Dillian White. He had a trilogy with Chisora, a trilogy that nobody was asking for. He fought Francis Ngannou. He went life and death with the pillow-fisted Otto Wallin, who Derek Chisora just beat this past weekend. He ducked David Price. He ducked Ortiz. He ducked a rematch with Vladimir. Some would say he ducked AJ. I personally say a pox on both their houses. I'm tired of, one of these, that sort of nonsense, pointing fingers at each other. I don't care. Point is, he didn't, or hasn't yet, fought him. He fought Tom Schwartz, who was lauded. I think it was even a pay-per-view, for heaven's sake. And that there are other people who have been active in this century who are, in my view, far more deserving of being called one of the top fighters of this century. There's Vladimir himself, who was undoubtedly past his best when Tyson beat him. But Vladimir has 64 wins and 5 losses. He was a champion for a very long time. Now, I know that most of his career was in the 1990s, but he was still active this century. And it's his brother Vitaly rather, who had a record of 45-2, only losing to Lennox Lewis and Chris Bird. Active this century. And of course, there's the great Lennox Lewis, a record of 41-2, beating both the people that he lost against, which puts him in a very small club. I think it's like Riddick Bowe, obviously Rocky Marciano was never beat, Gene Tunney. That might be it, actually. It's a very small number of people who revenged every loss they ever had. And I know, I can hear it now. People are saying, well, Tyson beat Vladimir. Tyson beat Vladimir. You know, Trevor Berbick beat Muhammad Ali. But we don't say that Trevor Berbick was better than Ali. Ezzard Charles, who was a great fighter, a man I did a video on a few days ago, he beat Joe Louis in 1950. But do we ever say, well, Ezzard Charles is a better heavyweight than Joe Louis? Of course not. Because if we've got a brain, we recognize that as good as Ezzard Charles was, beating the 1950 version of Joe Louis was not the same as beating the 1938 version or the 1943 version, right? We recognize that people, as they age out, are not as good. So I think that what Frank Warren is doing is, as the kids say, gaslighting us as fans. And I think it's wrong. It puts into people's minds, especially casuals who don't really understand or follow the history of the sport, a complete piece of false, inaccurate information. And that can't be good for fans because it misleads fans. It misleads fans into buying pay-per-views. It misleads fans into believing something that's simply not true. And it's not good for the sport. We shouldn't necessarily have to pander to the insecurities of some overgrown child with a monstrous ego. We don't say to people, you know, we don't say to Mike Tyson, oh, well, you beat Larry Holmes. What a goodbye. No. In fact, Mike Tyson had the self-awareness the very moments after he beat Larry Holmes to say something to the effect, Larry Holmes was a great fighter. That wasn't really Larry Holmes. He recognized immediately that he hadn't beaten the prime Larry Holmes. I mean, does Jake Paul really think that he beat Mike Tyson? Of course not. So we don't allow this nonsense to take root in our brains. And Frank Warren should know better. He does know better. But why are we not challenging this fake narrative? It annoys me. I had to get it off my chest. If that sounded too venty, too ranty, well, that's the way I feel. I think it's wrong. And quite frankly, there are other people who have been active this century, if you really want to be precise about things. Tyson himself was active. 2002, he lost to Lennox. Of course, this wasn't the Tyson of the 80s or the early 90s. There's Shannon Briggs, there's Ray Mercer, there's any number of people who, if you look at the resumes, who they fought, who they lost against, and be dispassionate about this. Tyson Fury absolutely cannot be and is not one of the top 2 heavyweights that has been active in the 21st century. That's my view. If you agree with me, please like, please share, please subscribe. If you don't agree with me, please please put your disagreements in the comment section and let's have a discussion, because this is a place where I welcome all comments, good, bad, indifferent. That's just my view, and it's one that I'm pretty firm about. Anyways, thank you very much for listening. Wherever you are, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.